David Vincent, and you are watching Altars of Metal. And congratulations for coming back after 20 years.
Metalheads, it's Kelly Schaefer from Athens and Till the Dirt, and you are listening to Altars of Metal. Reborn, recreated, just for you and your ears. Thank you. Turn it up, crank it. Cheers.
Hey, this is James Murphy. What's up? You're listening to Altars of Metal.
Hello there, this is Akis from Rocky Christ, and you are watching Altars of Metal.
Hello Metalheads, this is Elfinis Karadimas from Nightfall. You're watching Altars of Metal with the almighty Christian Thomas.
Altars of Metal, welcome back after 20 years. Have a good one.
Good evening and welcome to Altars of Metal. Tonight we're joined by a guitarist and songwriter whose work has helped define the vocabulary of modern thrash, Blake Ibanez, known for his pivotal role in Power Trip as the driving force also of behind Fugitive. Over the last decade, Blake's writing has emphasized precision, momentum, and intent riffs that carry from the rehearsal room to the stage with uncompromising impact. We'll explore the craft behind those songs, how ideas are shaped, how arrangement and space create weight, and the discipline it takes to deliver night after night. We'll also reflect on the legacy and ethos of Power Trip and the vision propelling Fugitive forward, what distinguishes this chapter and where it's headed next. It's an honor to have you with us. Blake, please everybody, welcome Blake Ibanez. Blake, welcome to Altars of Metal. It's great to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's just take things from the beginning. You started Power Trip back in 2008 with your demo, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? And
Yeah.
you released a single and a couple of EPs back then before releasing your first full-length album, Manifest Decimation, in 2013. Nightmare Logic followed in 2017. You had an amazing chorus. You shared the stage alongside some huge names, and in general, Power Trip became a hype. Then we had the tragic loss of Riley that took place in 2020, which was a shock for everybody. The band got frozen. We had a surprise reunion in December 2023 in Austin with Seth Gilmore on vocals. Formal 2024 shows followed, like for example the No Values Festival in Pomona. And you guys emphasized in honoring Riley's memory. So far so good?
Yeah, everything's been amazing so far. It's nice to be able to play shows again and play all these songs because at this point we poured so much of our life into it. It's just nice to be able to play with those guys again, and obviously we've gotten to have a lot of really cool opportunities since we've got back together. So it's been amazing. I can't really say anything negative about it.
Great, man. Okay, and how do you feel about the course of Power Trip so far, and how has this impacted you and your life? How has it marked your inner self? I mean, you're 34, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've done quite some stuff in your 34 years of age. You have achieved a lot, and it's been quite a trip so far. It's been a power trip. So how has that impacted you? How has it changed you as a human being? How has it marked your soul?
Well, I think it changed all our lives to have the band back because, since 2020, obviously when Riley passed away and everything else, I mean, we all sort of, did our own thing after that. And, some of us just kind of live normal lives and got jobs and stuff. And, I was determined to keep playing music. So I started Fugitive, and, it kind of just naturally happened to where, Seth ended up singing in Power Trip, but it wasn't really an option years ago. And sorry,
Okay. So we need to redial. Hope he gets back. That's all right. Hold on now. We gotta reset everything. Okay, let's see how this is gonna work, guys. Accept. All right. I want to
still
see.
there?
Yeah. So now I gotta reset stuff.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
No worries, man. No worries. We'll set it up. We'll set it up somehow, but I gotta do my magic again. So
This is doing it on my phone is
it's all right, man. It's all right.
fortunate.
We'll get there. No
Now
worries.
it's not very loud is the problem.
It's not very loud.
Yeah. Like your voice is really quiet now.
Okay. I'll try to speak closer here if that helps.
There we go. I got it. I got you on speakerphone now. I'm just hoping no one calls me again.
All right. Okay. All right. So let me just fix the window again. Sorry, guys. We just. All right. No problem. All right. I think we're back for good. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, you were talking about the whole trip, how it marked you, how it
Yeah.
How this power trip has been a life-changing experience.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing the band full time, very seriously for a number of years, and then, everything kind of came to a halt. So, to be able to be back on stage and doing this all again, we don't take it for granted. We're very lucky that we even have the opportunity to do this, So I definitely didn't know if we'd ever be able to do it again. And, we're just grateful to be able to play and grateful for people, still caring about the band and the music and giving us this opportunity. So, yeah, we're just thankful.
Mm-hmm. I will be reading some comments as well as we go, right? And
Sure.
we've got George A. Liverpool. He says, he writes in Greek, I will translate it. He says, I imagine he has heard it about 1,000 times, but I wish Power Trip will return with a new album soon. They're an amazing band. And of course, he runs before I ask my question, so I guess I can ask that question right now. Where are we right now with Power Trip? Are there perhaps any plans for writing new material? What is the schedule? What do we have for the future?
Yeah. We're about to be done playing shows for a while. We have a show this weekend in New Orleans, and then we don't really have anything until like the summer. So yeah, we're taking a break to work on stuff, and that's kind of all I can really share right now. But yeah, there will be something new will happen at some point soon. So
Something
I don't really
new.
have anything. Yeah, I don't have any news to share exactly on what that'll be, but we're working on stuff.
So there are no specific plans, but there is the intention to write some new material now and work on a new album.
Yeah. Well, we're already working on stuff. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me become a typical press guy and ask you: is the intention there for possibly a full-length album or an EP or?
Yes.
Yes, for a full album.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
Amazing. And you mentioned also you guys are having some shows. Can you also tell us what you did recently, where you played this year, and what was the touring map of Power Trip so far?
Yeah, we did, I guess like the last year and a half or so, maybe a little less. We started with the festival and then played in like Dallas and New York and LA, Chicago. And then we did just a lot more festivals. And then we went to Europe with Pantera. And then we did more European shows and festivals over the summer. And then we just did, let's see, we did Brazil and where else did we go? Brazil. Then just other festivals and stuff like that. So there's a lot of festivals and one-off shows here and there. Just for the last year and a half. So we've been playing a lot, but we haven't really done a proper tour. But I think we were just waiting to have some new things to offer before we do that. I think.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Any plans
Yeah.
for Europe?
Not right now. We were there a lot this past year. We did the Pantera tour, and then we went back in June and did a couple weeks of festivals in a few cities in between. So we've hit it pretty hard in Europe, I would say, this last year. So it'll probably be a while before we come back.
All right. Okay. And what about Fugitive? Since I asked you this question, and since you're in both bands, and they're both amazing bands, tell us a little bit about Fugitive. First of all, where we are at the moment, where we are standing, what are the plans of the band?
We put out a song over, I think it was a little before the summer, and yeah, I mean, we recorded some more stuff too. That might come out in the near future, whatever. I'm not really sure yet. Everything's kind of gotten busy and the bands have kind of converged as I assumed they would at some point. So we still playing shows. We have a show in a couple weeks in Austin here in Texas, and then we're playing in Los Angeles in December. And I think we're playing in Dallas in April. So we're still playing shows and all that, but it's just I kind of knew at some point both bands would be battling for, I'm so busy with both of them. So it's, I don't know when that stuff will come out. I hope it does. But, for now, I'm just kind of working on Power Trip stuff, and we're still playing, and everyone's kind of playing and doing different things. But they'll both continue to exist. It's just, I have a lot of people that I'm trying to, work with and produce for. So I knew at some point it would be a little hard to have them both be full force. So yeah, I'm not gonna we don't plan to end the band or anything, or just because Power Trip's a band, but I knew at some point it was gonna be a little difficult to do both at the same time, as much as possible, but it doesn't mean we can't still play and have fun and all that. So still a thing, but getting a little busy. So Power Trip's kind of on the forefront of my mind right now. But I still love those guys, and still love playing with them, and love getting to play shows with those guys.
Amazing. And how did the idea of Fugitive come up? I mean, were you trying to cover something different? Obviously Fugitive is different. And okay, shoot me, but I'm gonna say it, and I'm sure everybody, a lot of people must have said it. When I first heard Fugitive, I thought you guys had John Tardy on your vocals, so.
Yeah.
Which is not bad. I'm not saying this is a bad comment.
Yeah.
It was like a freaking punch in the stomach. I was like, what the hell am I listening? And thumbs up, man. Some great stuff. So, yeah, I'll let you do the talking.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's just how his voice sounds. So, it's cool. We love Obituary. We love John. So, the fact that they sound kind of similar is cool. Obviously, we're kind of coming from our own angle, and more like Power Trip, where, we still want to, try to convey a message and write lyrics in that sense, and have it be in our own attitude, in our own way. But obviously we're big fans, so if anything, if his voice reminds people of John's, I think that's a huge compliment, because he's one of the best, and there's only so many vocal styles that I think work with what we do, and Riley's voice was a little reminiscent of him too at times. So I think it's all sort of under the same umbrella, in terms of, how I want things to sound, how I want the vocals to sound over what I write. So, I can't imagine it that many other ways at this point. So, yeah, I'm glad that he, has a voice that's similar to, in the same realm of Riley and John, but he's kind of stands on his own. I think he has his own uh, ways of singing and is, writing lyrics and all that. So no, I'm lucky. I've gotten to play with and write with great singers that I love working with, and I love their, what they do. So yeah, I could definitely see that.
So the idea with Fugitive was to create something different. I'll be honest with you. I was ignorant with both Power Trip and Fugitive, and my girlfriend actually told me, "Hey, check this out. Check out this band Power Trip." And I was like, "Holy shit, this is good." And then I found out Fugitive, and then I saw your video clip, Spheres of Virulence, which is like, I think, your hit. And you guys, I think you really caught in that video, and I'm saying video, not only the song, not only the track, but you caught like a late 80s, early 90s feeling, both in the video production, which is like it was shot back then, and also it's like listening to something like a combination of Beneath Their Remains with John Tardy.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, that's a cool way of putting it. Well, it's funny because, obviously I love both those things, but when I'm writing the music, it's like I'm not thinking of either of those bands, but I guess they're in my DNA, but I think the cool thing about that song is like everything that I was trying to do with the music maybe came out in a way that maybe it was reminiscent of other bands, but I wasn't really intending to sound like either of those bands. But of course it's in my DNA, so everything I write, there's an element of, Cavalera, there's an element of Obituary, Trevor and John and all them, and like, I could see it for sure, but like the direct influences on the song were quite different actually. So it's cool that it's like kind of ties together all these different things that I like and that I try to do. I like that.
Great. There's a big hype in the comments. I've got all the Greek guys over here, obviously, and they're all talking like about the guitars in the background, and they say, "Hey, can he actually show us the guitars? Can you tell us a few words about his guitars, what they are, and show them to us?"
The guitars. Well, I have. You saying you want to see them right now, or
that's what everybody says, and there's a big hype. Everybody's just talking. Oh, this one is that, and what is the Flying V? Is it what about Epiphone? What about Jackson RR? And they're trying to guess what each guitar is. Right. So, and they say if you can show them and tell us a couple of words about them.
Okay. Well, this right here is the RR1 that I play in Power Trip, pretty much always. So. There's that Jackson R1, and then this is a Les Paul from the 70s. So the one that I played in the video is actually, I don't think I had this one yet. That one's from the early 2000s, but they're both basically the same Les Paul. They're like just a black Les Paul standard. That one I think is from mid 70s. And then over there is a Gibson Flying V from the 80s with a Kaler on it. And I played that in the other Fugitive video for the song Blast Furnace, and it's a really awesome guitar. The only problem is that the Kalers, to me, as far as I can tell, I don't know how to keep them in tune, because they love to go out of tune. So I love playing it, but I don't want to worry about the tuning. So I'll play it like maybe if I'm not using the bar a lot, and maybe in the studio or in a video. But unfortunately, I can't really pull off the live thing yet because I don't know how to get it to stay in tune. But I've kind of played all three of those in different videos, and I don't have that many guitars really actually, but I like to mix it up a little bit, and they all sort of serve different purposes. Like the Les Paul's really nice in the studio, and then live obviously the RR1 has the Floyd and everything that I need, and it's just comfortable. I've played it a long time live, and then I do like doing leads on the Gibson in the studio. Just the way the neck and the fretboard is, it's a little easier it balances nicely, and it has a kind of an older sound to it. So I use them all kind of for different things, but those are the main ones that I use.
All right. And can you tell us about the rest of the gear you're using as a guitarist?
Yeah. So in the studio with Fugitive, I pretty much always use a Les Paul. Probably the 2000s one that I was mentioning. It's actually in the shop because I broke it. It fell over. So it's getting repaired, but it has, I think, stock pickups in it, which I like a lot. And I just plug that into my Marshall JCM 800, which is, I think it's an 86 2203. I got it before we did Nightmare Logic, and that was kind of when I found, I guess, my sound, you would say. Like, it just kind of clicked when that happened. So it's a 1986 single channel JCM 800, and I've always played that one since then on pretty much everything. And then it's running into just a Marshall cab, I think it's like a JCM. I have different Marshall cabs, probably a straight cab. And then I really just run a tube screamer, like an Ibanez tube screamer. And that's pretty much it. So
Okay.
just a JCM 800 with a tube screamer. And then, but there's so many things that can really affect the way that sounds, like, the guitar, the strings, the pickups, the way you play, the way your hand sits on the mute and the way you dig into the guitar. It's like, the 800 really, it can go so many different ways depending on how you play and every little thing that you change on your guitar. It's not like if I plug anything into my combo amp that I just, jam on in my room, it all sounds the same, but pretty much. But the 800, it's like every guitar, anything sounds different coming out of it, which I love, so it has a lot of character.
Okay, perfect. And in the beginning, I kind of, went through, the history of Power Trip and everything. Can you tell me how it all started? I mean, was it you specifically who approached the rest of the guys? What was the idea, and how did you guys meet? And how did it all just start?
Well, it started because I was playing in a band with Nick and Chris Wetzel from Power Trip, the guitar and bass player, and we were in hardcore bands. We kind of come from the hardcore punk scene, and we had a band, and we weren't really, we were kind of fizzling out. We didn't love our vocalist situation, and there was a band in Dallas, a hardcore band that had just broken up, that Riley sang in, and he was kind of a figure in the scene that everybody knew. And it was around this time where our band was kind of fizzling out. I remember meeting him at a show, and we just started talking, and I knew he wanted to start a band, and I was like, well, we also want to do a new band. And we both just kind of started bonding over records that we liked. We had the same idea of what we wanted to do at the time, so it was like crossover, and kind of like combining all the hardcore punk stuff and all the metal stuff that we liked. That sort of had a similar through line, I guess. So we just started saying, oh, you like that record? Yeah, I love the record. I want to do something like this. I want to do something like that. And then we just started talking, and within probably a couple weeks, I was sending him demos that, like, me and the drummer of my other band were writing. And not that long after that, he was over at my friend's house, and we were just making the demo in the bedroom. So it was pretty much just like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry if my phone's making noise. I'm getting some text messages.
All right. No, we don't hear anything. Don't worry.
Okay, you don't hear it? All right, good.
Okay. And I have my friend George Tiotios. It's all Greek to you because it is. He says he wants me to ask you, how much did the Texas scene influence you in informing your character as a musician, and in general, what is your opinion about Devastation, Watchtower, DRI, Rigor Mortis, Hellstar, Absu?
That's a long list.
Yeah.
So the first question was the about the Texas scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how I feel about it.
Yeah, and how did it actually influence you in forming yourself as a musician?
Okay. Well, of course, like I love all those bands. I mean, being from Texas, there was always a really strong lineage of bands here, not just in the metal scene, but in the hardcore and punk scene too. So, when we started, a band that was like our kind of like our older brothers that were really, really instrumental in showing us the way was a band called Iron Age. And they're not really, I don't think they're really recognized or known about in the metal world because they really came from the hardcore punk scene, but they pretty much ended up being a pure metal band at the end of their, I guess, existence, which was, I guess didn't really last as long as it seemed because I think they started in 2005 and they sort of were more or less done making music by I think 2010, so 2010 or 2011. So it was like maybe 5 or 6 years of output, but they had a guitar player named Wade Allison that was really, really inspiring for me. I mean, the whole band was, of course, they made really great records that were kind of like us. I mean, it was they mixed hardcore punk and metal influences in a way that was, very similar to what we wanted to do. I mean, we had certain bands that maybe we leaned on more than they did. They kind of were coming, I guess once they became more metal, like it was a doomier thing. It was a little more like Sabbath and Trouble, but also with all the Cro-Mags and stuff that we all love. But they were really inspiring and really enlightening for me and for us just to, they kind of found that through line with all these bands that we love and sort of laid the groundwork for that. And it was kind of like, oh, I could build on something, you know what I mean? They walked so we could run. And I'm always have to mention that because that was incredibly important for us. But outside of that, obviously, the metal bands in Texas, there's a big history of metal in Texas. Obviously Devastation was a big influence on all of us, on Riley and me and kind of how that sounded, because even though they were a metal band, they almost sounded kind of crossover too, because he was kind of yelling and almost his delivery was almost hardcore, I would say. So it was not your average death metal record. It was like a death thrash record. So Devastation was big. Hellstar, of course, was really big for me. Some of those early mid period records like Remnants of War. Because a lot of these bands, like the way that they played guitar, it was kind of almost speed metal, power metal, which were the riffage was something I could find on a Cro-Mags album or like a crossover record from a New York hardcore band like Leeway or something. So, finding all the parallels between the hardcore bands and the crossover bands and the metal bands was really inspiring for me because it kind of showed me a path into metal in a way that I thought was cool and that I could make sense of coming from where I came from. So, yeah, pretty much all those bands you mentioned, I've been inspired by, or, I'm very proud of the Texas metal scene and the, hardcore scene and everything that's come from our state. We have a lot of pride in all that here, and obviously super instrumental in, how I write and how we always wrote songs and everything. So, yeah.
And there's a huge variety from Texas. I mean, I remember you guys playing, and one of you, I don't remember if it was you or another member of your band who was wearing a Solitude Aeternus t-shirt. We had Robert Lowe here on our show. They played Doom. Then there's, I don't remember if he's from Texas or Florida originally, David Vincent from Morbid Angel. I know he is based in Texas. He's in
Texas?
He's in Austin, as far as I remember.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly. I mean, there's a huge variety. You get like death metal bands, you get punk bands, you get doom bands, and some huge names. So, how do you guys are you guys related with those names? Do you know each other and have relations like with Solitude Aeternus or David Vincent or these names?
I don't know David Vincent. I didn't even know he lived in Texas, but of course, like I'm very good friends with John from Solitude Eternus, John Perez. He actually lives in Fort Worth, where I live, and works at a record store here that I go to all the time. And he's a great friend. We actually were just in Brazil playing with Candlemass, and he was tour managing them. So he's one of my favorite people. He's really brilliant songwriter and just a great guy. You know, we have a lot of musical interests that are the same. You know, we love the Beatles and we love psychedelic rock and all that stuff. So he's amazing, good friend, but a guy that I met more in the metal realm. You know, not in the hardcore world. So you know, it's cool how even though we started in the hardcore punk world, we've been able to expand and like meet people in the metal world. I've met, you know, all the guys from all these bands. Like I know Rodney from Devastation really well. He's a great guy. He's around, you know, he goes to shows all the time. He's around. And all these guys, you know, Jason McMaster from Watchtower and you know, all those people, you know, they're still around because they're lifers and they're really supportive and always been really cool to us and me. And yeah, so we have good relationships like with all these people. You know, like I think you mentioned DRI. We played with them early on, I think a couple times. I don't know any of them particularly, but we played with them, and obviously we were big fans of those records early on. So, you know, pretty much a lot of these guys we know. I think David Winston, maybe he moved here probably in the last 20 years, but obviously we love Morbid Angel too. So yeah.
All right, and George Tsiotios, he also wants me to ask you about your experience. I don't know anything about this. I'm just reading it in the comment. It's about your experience with Eternal Champion.
Yeah. I thought that might come up because we played in Greece.
All right.
I think they've actually played there since I haven't been in the band once or twice too, because the Greek scene they have such a big heavy metal scene there, so they love Eternal Champion. It seems like well, I was in that band, so it started I think around 2012 or 13. So Jason Tarpey, the singer, was the singer of that band Iron Age that I mentioned earlier. That was, you know, good friends of ours, like, you know, kind of showed us the way. And he started Eternal Champion and put out a demo tape, but he hadn't played any shows. And I think in order to play shows, he asked me to play in the band. So I of course wanted to, you know, do anything to collaborate with him. And so we played our first show, I think in 2013 with Manila Road, which was really cool to do that when Mark Sheldon was still alive. And I was in the band, I guess, until around 2018, maybe. I think. So I played on the first EP after the demo, which was a couple songs. There was a song called Retaliator that I wrote a good amount of, and then the first album I wrote, I think one and a half or part, you know, one song I wrote, and then there was another one that I had something to do with. But I enjoyed playing with those guys. I think once, you know, most of the band sort of ended up being in Philadelphia, Arthur Rizek joined, and he brought his band into the fold, like Brad, Rob, rest in peace, and New John Powers. And then once they were all in Philadelphia and I was in Texas, and it was kind of like I was so busy with Power Trip, I sort of, you know, respectfully was like, I'm gonna step away just because I you know, I don't, it's so hard to have time when you're in a full-time band to travel and play in a band that's, you know, somewhere else. So but those guys, they didn't need my help. They were, you know, they're great at writing songs and doing all that stuff. So you know, I think if anything, they got a lot better without me. So but it was fun to you know, play with those guys, and we got to go to Greece and play in Greece. I'd actually been to Greece with my family one time before that, so I knew how amazing it was there. But it was really fun to play a show there because the heavy metal scene is so passionate, and so you know, it's just you guys love true metal, so we had a really good show there. And yeah, that was kind of the extent of my involvement in that band. But obviously, I still know all those guys, and still friends with all of them.
All right. And whereabouts in Greece did you go?
We were in Athens. We played in Athens for Up the Hammers Fest, I think it is.
Yeah.
Is it Up the Hammers? Yeah. And we played with Iron Angel and Armored Saint and some other bands. It was really cool. And yeah, it was just a really, really fun show. It was cool to experience the Greek heavy metal scene. I'd heard about it, and we'd heard about it. I knew Eternal Champion had fans there, so it was fun to go there and get to experience it there. And like I said, I'd been there. I'd been to some of the islands in Athens, I think in 2008, with my family. So I'd been there, and I love it there. So it was cool to get to go back.
You haven't been to
far
Crete.
away.
You haven't been to Crete specifically.
I've been to Santorini and Mykonos, and
All
then
right.
I'd been to Athens, but
All
those are the only places I've been.
Okay,
Yeah.
next time you get to visit us in Crete.
I know, yeah, I would love to. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
man. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go back to the reunion part in late 2023 with Seth Gilmore. How did that come up? Just that, yeah.
Well, obviously we started Fugitive, and it was kind of just to experiment, because Seth was one of my closest friends. He lives in my town, so I think it was like, well, I don't have anything to do. Do you want to try to write some songs together for fun? And he had, he had been fronting hardcore bands since, as long as Power Trip's been a band, but he was sort of, he just played hardcore shows and, sang in those types of bands. So he wasn't what you would call like a, I don't know how you'd put it, like a professional, full-time band guy. He played in bands for fun, but he'd been around a long time and been doing it a long time. So I knew he had a natural, ability, and he was comfortable in that role. So I think I had mentioned to him, after Riley passed away, I had talked about, would you want to mess around with some of this Power Trip stuff? And I think at that point it was so fresh and so new. It was just kind of like, I don't know, maybe down the road, but I was like, yeah, I get it. But I think I had heard some of the stuff. He's in a band called Scourge, which is like a hardcore band that has some crossover influences, some death metal influence. So I'd heard his evolution of his voice and everything in that band. And I think around this time they had done a new EP or something, and his voice, he started to showcase what he could do, like his depth to his voice, his range. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know you could do all that stuff, and not just that, but like, me and him having such a good relationship, and him being such a, nice guy that's like easy to work with. I was like, well, why don't we just try to write some songs and see what happens, and I've always been like, pretty involved when it comes to Power Trip in the studio. I mean, I didn't write anything for Riley, but like, just me and him having to, write songs together, we had to be on the same page and understand, he knew what I wanted him to do in terms of where I wanted things to be. And I know the formula, and I know how I like to write songs and how we've always written songs. So, and I have some of those instincts as well. So I was like, well, I'm going to take what I know from what we've always done and what I did with Riley and everything, I learned from him, and that, we learned working together, and let's try to write songs, like, I think we can do it. And so I didn't know if it was going to work at all. And then, but, obviously we started working together, and it was fun. And we like, he's a talented lyricist and singer in his own right. And there wasn't the pressure of we're making a Power Trip record or something. It's like, let's just start a new band and have it be different and have it be its own thing. And that kind of just led to playing more shows and bigger shows, and, having some success with Fugitive, and like out of the gate, and, building his confidence, playing bigger shows and playing his own songs and songs with me. And it's like, I think over a couple of years, it just, that turned into, I think by the next time the Power Trip idea came around, like, hey, do you want to try to sing these songs and see what happens? He was ready, and he was like, yeah, like, why not? I'm comfortable playing with you, and I'm, I feel good what I'm doing right now. Like, why don't we give it a shot? And he he was down, and he had to be, because it's a lot to uh put on your shoulders, and but I think it's like, and he has a good head on his shoulders. It was like, it's not about, being him or being anybody. Just be yourself. Just sing, sing them with intention, and like with, you know, passion or whatever, and he does. So I think it just is it was a natural progression, and I think he's done a really amazing job. And like I said, we're not out here like, no, you're never going to be able to replace anybody that was their own person, an individual, like someone really talented like Riley. But that's not what anybody's doing. He's always going to be a special person, and a force in his own right. And I wouldn't want anybody to replace him. But Seth is his own guy, and he brings something different to the table. And we just are here to continue doing what we did, and like not let it die, because I think that would have been even more sad. And I think to get to play the songs, and say Riley's name on stage, every night, and have people remember how special he was, and all the great songs he wrote, I think is amazing. And it was really sad when we were in a time where it didn't seem like that was going to happen again. So it's just about kind of like, let's see what we can do now. And like, I think based on the relationship that me and Seth have, and what we've been able to do, I feel really confident about writing more together, and doing something, opening a new chapter that's maybe not exactly the same, but it's awesome, and inspiring in a different way. And I think that's we're gonna do the best we can to do that. We would never do anything that we didn't feel supremely confident in, and feel like it was the right thing. So but none of that is ever going to take away from anything Riley did or anything we did with him. That's always going to be special, and always going to be something we did with him. It's like that was his, those were his words, and it was our music, and like that's always going to be special. But as we've seen with other bands, AC/DC and Van Halen and all these other, you can do something new that's different. It's not the same, but it's it's an exciting part of a something that could have ended tragically and never heard from again. So yeah.
It's exactly what I was gonna say, that it's a new chapter, man. So, and you're going on to write the next chapter. The question, however, is, did you guys feel like stressed, like, hey, we've got a gap to cover, or how to fit in into Riley's shoes, or how are the people gonna perceive it, or this or that? Did you have this troubles in your mind when you were just going on for the reunion?
Well, of course, you think about that, and I would, obviously there were some people that were terrible, like people that decided to try to take advantage of whatever they could with whatever relationship they thought they had with him, or whatever place they thought they had in our story. There were plenty of people that were awful to us, and treated us like we were traitors because of just trying to play songs we wrote. But no, that was a very, very tiny part of the story. Everything else has been amazing, and people have been really receptive. I think most people understand the circumstance. It's we didn't fire anybody. It was like this was a horrible situation, and we're just trying to continue doing something that can bring people happiness, and can be fun, and contribute something to the heavy music landscape. So it's like, I think obviously, I don't know if I would say I was nervous in that sense, because I'd played with Seth so long. I'd seen, I've heard how he sang the songs. I know how he is. So I felt confident, it was just another show with him. And like, I think the energy from the people at the shows and everything, and the feedback was so great that it was just hard to feel that way. It's always in the back of your mind, like, you want to offer something that is good in a similar way, but that's not really for me to decide. I can't control that, because Riley's not here anymore, and this is what we have. So I can't really dwell on it too much because I can't do anything to, play with him again. But I love playing with Seth, and I'm gonna do that because that's how we continue. It's how we move forward. Uh, but I'll always be thinking about, how fun that was to play with Riley and how talented he was to write with and all that. I learned a lot, and that's the reason I'm here, is that I got to, be in a band with him. So I'll always cherish that.
What guardrails do you keep to honor Riley while moving forward?
What do you mean by guardrails?
I don't know. Let me use a different word. I'll be very much more simple. What actions? I mean, let me just rephrase it. Do you guys try to honor the legacy of Riley as you move on forwards in any way? And for example, from the point of view, let's say, how you guys proceed with the lyrics, how you guys proceed with I don't know, with the whole character of Power Trip moving on forward? Or do you try to somehow continue this in the way that, I don't know, like Riley would move on, or as you said, perhaps try to give a new breath, a new feeling to Power Trip from now onwards?
Yeah, I mean,
since you're in the process also of writing new material, I mean, are you gonna try to keep the same kind of following the same path? Are you gonna try to do something like a little bit more experimental now? Are you gonna try to change the character of Power Trip, or are you gonna follow like a specific recipe that you guys had with Riley?
I mean, I think it's a little of everything you mentioned. Of course, we'll always honor him when we can. We are moving forward. We have to focus on the future, but like that doesn't mean that we'll forget him or not honor him or not. Of course, that's always going to be a thing that we'll do, and we'll try to make sure of. But when it comes to moving forward, we're gonna write music how we want to write it. Obviously, like I said before, all the things and the elements of the formula that we've always had, I want to try to keep those as much as I can, obviously. But Seth's a different person. He's a different singer. He's a different lyricist. So is he gonna try to write lyrics exactly like Riley would? Well, I would hope he wouldn't. You know what I mean? Those were Riley's words. That was his personality. It doesn't mean that we don't believe in everything that, and still want to be in that realm anymore. Of course we do, but I don't write the lyrics, so I can't really control that. I want Seth to write about what he feels strongly about and what he wants to, put his name on and sing every night. So that's not really for me to decide, but, I think he's his own person. So,
so you want to let Seth, for example, to let himself unfold and let his creativity go as he wants, as he wishes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all come from the same, world musically, and we have similar tastes and everything. So I think it's gonna sound, we want it to sound like Power Trip. We want it to sound like something we would do, but I would never tell him to write about this or that, or to do something. I have no idea what Riley, he was always thinking and changing, and I don't know what he would be writing about in this day and age either. I don't know what he would want to talk about, but I can't really speculate on that. Like he's not with us anymore, sadly. So it's like, I don't want to, again, it's like, I would feel that would be like trying to fill his shoes, and that doesn't feel right. I think like, he deserves that space. I think like with Seth, it's, he's his own guy. He can handle his own thoughts and ideas, and we're not gonna, I don't think we would do anything that would, for any reason, to go in opposition to anything that he wrote about it. But it's not, I don't think the same, he's not going to try to write the same songs or anything like that. So it'll be something different, but I don't think it'll be anything, I can't imagine it'd be anything that people that like us wouldn't be interested in or be stoked on. But not really my call.
Talking about chapters before, writing a new chapter in a band, I wanted to discuss, like, I wanted your opinion on, for example, Jeff Loomis with Nevermore now that he's restarting and everybody is just wondering who the new vocalist is going to be. And, I've seen a lot of people actually discussing, oh no, maybe they shouldn't do it under Nevermore, but hey, it was him as well. So he was there and he wants to let his creativity go on under that name. I don't know. What is your opinion about Jeff Loomis and Nevermore and the new chapter that's coming up? Since you're a guitarist as well, and since the story is similar.
I wouldn't really say I have an opinion. I mean, he's entitled to do whatever he wants. I'm never gonna tell someone what to do. Obviously, I can't because I've done the same thing. But I would never tell someone what to do. I mean, I think with heavy metal and all that, I mean, it's like I think different people can sing over riffs and can write songs. I don't. Why would you give up on that? Unless metal. I think it's a little different because a lot of times it's super collaborative. You know what I mean? It's not just one voice. There's the voice of the singer, but there's the voice of the music too. So, it's like in Nirvana or something. Kurt, he wrote the songs and sang. He was kind of all. Obviously, Dave Grohl was a great drummer, but if the guy's writing the songs and singing and everything, it's like, yeah, that's you. It's hard to overcome that. You know what I mean? I don't think you would really want to try to do that. But I think with metal, it's like, we've seen over the years so many different bands like have different singers and I don't know. I think it's a case by case thing. I don't know enough about their catalog or everything to say whether or not someone would want to do that. But that's definitely not my place to say that at all. I think it makes sense to me that he would want to, keep the band going and have someone sing the songs and keep making music. I don't see why you wouldn't do that. So I think I understand people, the way they feel about stuff like that, but you don't have to listen to it. You can just, doesn't mean that the music's of the past is ruined or something because someone else is singing them or that they're making new music. Just, if you can choose to listen to it or not, I mean, you probably will, but whether you like it or not, that's up to you. I think some people think that it makes the music or the band less special. I mean, that's up to them to decide, but you can't, it's not realistic to demand that of people that just because it'll feel less special to you. It's not really fair. Because we've seen it many times over the years that bands are able to, have different singers and different chapters and different, whether or not you like it, that's subjective, but it's definitely not, I don't think anybody's place to tell Jeff Loomis, what he should do with his band.
All right. Just gonna go back on Fugitive a little bit, and I want to ask you on Spheres of Virulence. What was the big production decision that changed the track's personality?
Production. Well, what do you that changed it, or what do you mean, or just
that formed it? From the point of view of production, yeah. What do you think actually defined it as it is today?
Compared to the other stuff?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Oh, okay. Well, we recorded with different people, and everything we had done up to that song had been self-produced basically. So it was like, we would record with our friends, and then kind of do it all DIY, and we did the best we could. But working with professionals and people that have made a lot of records, didn't things turn out differently. So we had a mixer that. Tom Dalgetty, who's mixed a lot of metal and rock stuff.
And Nick Raskulinets?
Yeah, we recorded with him in Nashville, and working with a kind of like a producer engineer guy, and having some of his input, and then having Tom mix it. He's mixed stuff for Ghost and lots of big bands, so I'm always want to make something that sounds good and that's powerful, I guess. And, you're always searching and trying to get that. And it's really hard to get it always how you want it to. But it was just, I think that had the most to do with it is just, being on a label and having more people having input, and which is great. It's good to have more sets of ears and people that can, help you make the right decisions and hopefully get something that sounds good, people like. So I'd say that the people that we worked with were the biggest difference makers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And as far as Blue Grape music is concerned, what made that partnership the right home for Fugitive right now?
Well, the guy that started the label is Dave Rath, who was at Roadrunner Records for many years, and he had always been a friend to Power Trip and a supporter, and always wanted to work with us, and it just never happened. But I'd always had a relationship with him, and I think when he started Blue Grape, uh, I knew I'd want to work with him if I could. And as soon as he expressed interest in, working with me, it was like a no-brainer. So that was kind of what happened. And he's great. He's obviously had his track record and everything he's been involved in. It kind of speaks for itself. And like he's not just that. He's a great guy, and he's a guy you want to work with and kind of entrust with what you do. And like, yeah, I mean, it was sort of a no-brainer, so that's kind of why we did that.
Okay. And as far as riffcraft and songwriting is concerned, do you write with the pits in mind? For example, mapping turn points where you want the floor to erupt, or, I mean, what's your philosophy over there? Or you just go free and whatever comes up to your mind?
I guess a little bit of both. I mean, at this point, I've written a good amount of songs since I started writing songs, I guess. So, I kind of know what I try to do. I have a bit of like a blueprint, I guess, for how I like to write songs. But it's always changing a little bit. I mean, it's rooted in, making it pretty simple in terms of like the structure. I'm pretty simple when it comes to that. So I liked it to be easy to remember, and I don't usually have a ton of parts. It's usually just like I try to just arrange them in a way that makes sense and that's interesting and catchy, I guess. And so yeah, I always want to keep it exciting, and we've always in all the songs I've written, we usually have tempo changes and stuff like that. So I always want to keep it heavy when I can, without trying too hard to be heavy all the time, I guess, because I still want it to be a song, and I want it to be like have some type of arc to it, or like a story to it, I guess, as you listen to it, like rather than it just being, one thing. But there's so many ways to write songs, so it's like you can't really limit yourself, but I have to try to keep it as simple as I can going into it, so I don't get lost in it, because if it's very easy to get to, have that happen when you really think of all the different options. I mean, ultimately, you just have to commit to something that you envision in your head or whatever. And a lot of times for me, it happens just through listening to music, like if I'm stuck, even if it's a record I've heard a million times, if I put on like a Celtic Frost record or an Exodus record or something, it just like something goes off in my head, and I can't even make it through the first side of the album because I already have my guitar in my hand. So it's like, that's always what helps. Sometimes sometimes I'll kind of distance myself from some of that stuff just because I'm writing it. I don't want to regurgitate it, or I don't want, I've heard it so many times, but at the end of the day, if I need to be inspired, you just have to listen to music. And I think I always tell people, like, the way I learned was just learning my favorite band's songs, like knowing how riffs go and like the chord progressions and the shapes and like, the tendencies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you find your own path, right? Like you have to kind of recognize all those things, and then you can sort of take all those ideas and all those patterns and movements and like try to find your own way through them, and like that's the most important thing I would say, is just understanding those things. I mean, they're kind of like scales if someone's really into lead guitar, which I don't know very many of those, but if you understand I guess the scales and the patterns of riffs and like all that, then it's a lot easier to try to come up with your own combinations. You know, it's still hard though, you know, because so much has been done. I hesitate to say everything's been done, but a lot of stuff has, you know. So you also have to just remember and recognize, you know, hopefully as much as you can when you're doing something that has been done, you know. Like sometimes you get lucky, and then sometimes you're like, fuck, that's that one thing, and you just do the best you can, you know. Every song that's ever been written is always, you know, comes from something, it seems like. So, you know, it's gonna happen, I think, but you have to just try to be as aware as you can, you know. That's all I can really say. So I would say those are the things I focus on, is just trying to like conceptualize a song in my head that I want to write. And maybe it's like, you know, I try to tie together, find a through line between things that maybe aren't the same, that I hear similarities in. So like I was saying earlier, maybe, you know, I might hear something similar on a Cro-Mags record that I heard on a Exodus album, or a, you know, someone else. Like, it could be anything, but those bands weren't really related at the time. So it's like, to be able to find the through line between those bands, and maybe whatever that is something slightly different or new, I guess, or whatever it could be. That's what I try to do, you know. So I think you're always trying to take in influences from wherever you can. You know, I'll get ideas listening to a Thin Lizzy song or something about the arrangement, or how the, you know, the bridge happens or something like that, and that's inspiring, you know. So I'm always just trying to like bring it all together, and, you know, combine things that maybe weren't, you know, considered to be that similar, but they are in a way. So I mean, that's what all the great bands did, you know. Like Slayer took like Dead Kennedys and DRI and verbal abuse, and like enmeshed that with Venom, and you know what I mean? It's like, that was what they did. Metallica took, like, you know, Diamond Head and Motorhead and, you know, whatever, and GBH, Discharge, and they found their own path with that, you know. And it's like, I think that's what you need to do, you know. You have to just try to find interesting things to combine that maybe make you sound like your own band. I don't know. I mean, there's always going to be someone that's like, oh no, that's just that. That's fine. But people have done that with every band, you know what I mean? Like, people did that with all the great bands. Oh, they just sound like that. So you can't, I think about that, and then I have to just at some point block it out and go, you know, fuck those people. Yeah.
All right, we have reached about an hour now, so I'm gonna keep my my schedule. Usually, we have a break on 1 hour for 3 minutes. Take it easy, and we'll be right back in 3-4 minutes. So everybody, just stay with us. We're with Blake Ibanez from Power Trip and Fugitive, and see you in 3 to 4 minutes. Be there. All right, everybody, we're back with Blake Ibanez from. Do I actually pronounce that right? Ibanez.
Not quite.
Ibanez.
I mean, that's that. I allow people to do that because it's easier. But no, it's Ibanez.
Ibanez.
Well,
Okay.
Ibanez, but I think the guitar company is Ibanez. So whatever people want to call me that, it's fine. I'm not gonna correct them.
So we're back with
Technically,
Blake.
it's Ibanez. Yeah.
Blake Ibanez from Power Trip and Fugitive. So cool, man. Okay, I've got a couple. I had a question here. It's my friend. Jesus Christ, they're going crazy. They're just having some fun in the comments, and I gotta find it again. My friend Vitamin Death. He actually wrote a question that I have to. All right, there you go. So it says, do you like Polyphia and Tim Henson as a guitar player?
I've heard of Polyphia. That's the guy with like all the tattoos, right? The crazy guitar player.
I don't remember if it's. I don't
He's
remember them, but I know Polyphia.
Yeah, I think I know who that is. Yeah,
very prog.
A friend of mine built his home studio because he lives in DFW, I think. So I know of him. I've never met him before, and I've never listened to them. But I know that they're like insane virtuoso players, so that's pretty cool. It's not I don't listen to a lot of that music, but I respect it, and like it seems like they're really popular and the people love them. So that's pretty much all I know about them. But I've heard that dude's really crazy guitar, so that's cool.
Yeah, and the bassist also amazing. I mean, all of them, they're amazing musicians,
they're all
man.
Like crazy musicians, yeah.
So what is your opinion about like prog metal, like, I don't know, as we mentioned before, like Watchtower, I don't know, Spastic Inc., all this crazy prog stuff. Is it your thing, or?
I would say probably not, but it's not because I don't think it's great, it's not like my personal taste. I'm kind of like, I guess it's kind of like how I was
more
saying
simple.
I like to write. It's very simple.
More
like,
straightforward,
Yeah, I'm just, I'm
good
like,
old friendly, violent fun, like Exodus used to say, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not like ADD, but I think with music a little bit, like I just need to be able to chew on like one thing and focus on a simple song. So sometimes the more complex, like progressive stuff, I just get a little bored's not the right word, but I just get a little like it doesn't give me exactly what I want in that moment. But I think it's impressive and I think it's great. Like obviously Watchtower is really cool, and I think there's a lot of elements of music that I love that progressive bands have done, and like I have bands I like that have had progressive elements in them. So but I wouldn't call myself like a big fan of progressive music, but I respect it. It's definitely not that it's not great. It's just that it's like, my personal taste. I don't really listen to a lot of that stuff, but
I think I would say the same thing exactly.
Yeah,
I think I would say the same thing exactly. Impressive,
Right.
just like from musicianship and everything,
Right.
but it just keeps going on and on and on. And that's what I would say, for example, for Dream Theater. Definitely not my type, definitely not my thing, absolutely not, but impressive, but yeah.
Yeah, they're super impressive. I haven't spent a lot of time listening to them, but they're obviously very accomplished and very talented. So
how about
when
when you use these progressive elements in death metal, for example?
Yeah.
What is your opinion? Like, I don't know. I will let you name the bands.
I think for me, like I generally am less into it if it's more technical and more like that, just because it's not
I know
good. I think well, especially like I think a lot of the modern bands too, generally more progressive, more that it means more computer, more robotic, more plastic. So maybe that's why I shy away from it, but that's also a symptom of like the era that I grew up in. So I guess I think of like progressive death metal, like some of the death records, like the later death records and stuff. Like those, I can get behind that. Yeah, like I like those records.
How about Atheist, for example?
I've never really listened to them.
Oh,
I've
you
seen the
should.
logo.
Listen to
Yeah.
especially the first 2 albums.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna love it.
Yeah, there's some stuff I like. I mean, I love like Infernal Majesty has some progressive parts and some
Yeah.
technical stuff that I really like, but they still don't go too far off the reservation. Like they still kind of keep it within like the song in a way that doesn't, get too out there. I mean, obviously, like even Metallica has some elements on like, Justice for All has some, pretty far out arrangements and technical stuff. So I like a lot of it, but I wouldn't consider myself a big fan of
You're
the
more
genre.
simple. You're more simple, just straightforward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. And okay, in this case, I will do the favor to my old friend and old bandmate Nick Thrasher. He spammed the comments before that you should listen to his band Toxic Terror, which is from my town. They just released a video. I'll send you later a message to check it out. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at that point, I wanted to ask you, what is your how? Just compare with your own words, American thrash scene versus the European thrash scene. And what are your feelings?
Very, very different. I would say, but I don't know. I like both. I mean, obviously, there's so many great American bands, but there's also a lot of really cool European bands. Like Sodom is one of our favorite bands. They're what they did. I guess it depends on where you draw the line and what thrash is.
Well, I think the Teutonic thrash from Germany, like Sodom, Creator, Destruction, the big three. Yeah. And then there's Tankard, of course. And
Yeah. I mean, I love a lot of those bands, so I like them both. I don't know if I could really pick one, because it's like either one, you're leaving out a lot of good stuff. I mean, obviously I'm American, so many great American bands. I'd have to pick those, but there's a lot of awesome European bands. I mean, if you really go down the list, there's so many good ones. So, we love Sodom. We love,
Yeah.
Creator's got some awesome stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of there's obviously bands that are European. For some reason, I'm not thinking of which ones are European or not. I mean, we love Celtic Frost and Hellhammer and stuff. I guess in some ways that's thrash, but it's not really considered thrash.
Well, you're mentioning the dads, the fathers, the dads, the fathers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's this. If I went through my tape collection, which I'm doing right now,
like for example, from the UK, we had Venom.
British. The British. Well, if we're talking British, that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
We're in Europe right now. I guess you're mainland Europe.
Yeah, it is and it isn't after the Brexit, but it's relative, however somebody sees it. But from this side of the planet, whatever, of course the UK is a very different part. Yeah, the British are a very different part. And the British,
I mean, we go to the UK, that's a whole nother, in terms of music, that's like a whole nother universe of like amazing music. So we could talk about the UK all day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely, man. And what about comparing Florida death metal scene versus, in general, American, but I think it would be Florida versus the European scene? Like for names like Dismember, Entombed, At the Gates, Ball Thrower from the UK, again different, but
these are all we
Asphyx, the Dutch scene, Messiah.
We're all big fans of the Swedish scene, like obviously Entombed is amazing, and Unleashed and Dismember, all those bands, and we love that stuff. Who else do we mention? You said someone else, I thought. But
I said.
I mean, like I said, when you get to the UK, it's like you got Bolt Thrower and Sacrilege and tons of fucking awesome bands. I guess comparing death metal, I mean, it's hard to compare because they're very different. I mean, pound for pound, Florida and in the US death metal it's hard to beat in terms of all the bands and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we fucking love the Swedish death metal scene and all those bands, and like their take on it is super cool and interesting. You know, I love Entombed, and I love the way that Nick Anderson writes. And Death Breath is one of our favorite bands. They didn't put out a lot of music, but the way they played death metal, which was just super primitive, and like he basically, you know, early thrash, but with death metal vocals. I mean, that was a big inspiration for Fugitive too, was Death Breath. So yeah, we're way into that stuff.
Cool, man. And somebody asked before in the comments, somebody wanted, I can't scroll, it's too many comments over here, all Greek to you, but somebody wanted me to ask you, how do you get into metal? When, at what age, how was the beginning? And number one question, and number two, what are your favorite metal bands? So we're going more into the fun part of Blake. So
how did I get into metal? Well, I didn't really grow up with metal. You know, my parents are old enough to where I think they just kind of, you know, they were already older, I guess, when metal happened. So it's like I didn't really get that when I was younger.
I doubt it.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
older.
raised, you know, my dad, you know, the Beatles and
Yeah.
you know, the Byrds and Neil Young and Jimi Hendrix, and he did feed me some of the punk bands because he was always really interested in that, just, you know, from an outside perspective. He knew I was into skateboarding and all that, so he's like, you know, he would show me the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and the Clash. So I was way into that. Obviously the Who was big, and then yeah, it really wasn't until, you know, I got into the punk and hardcore scene and I started playing in those bands, and then that was sort of my gateway into metal, because the path from crossover hardcore and punk into metal was so much cooler to us, I guess, just especially given when we were growing up in the 2000s. I think it was just you know, metal it existed, but it wasn't what it was back in the day. So I think we always just kind of were more drawn to the old school stuff, and that's where the crossover thing was so appealing, because you know, it was like Cro-Mags and Leeway, Nuclear Assault, and all that, and you know how the similarities between punk and metal, like Slayer and Metallica and all that, Exodus. So that was how I got into metal, was that way. You know, Headbangers Ball and MTV and all that stuff, you know, just being a kid in the 2000s. But yeah, that was it. And then favorite metal bands, I mean, that one's tough. You know, I don't know. I like them all like equally in a way. I don't know if there's one that, there are records that are really important to me, I would say, but
for instance, let's say, first of all, what was the first metal band that you heard and just blew your mind, and you're like, holy shit, you know, this is the thing, man.
Metal band. Yeah. I mean, they definitely weren't the first metal. I don't know who the first metal band I heard was, but you know, obviously when I heard Bonded by Blood, that was a big, like, holy fuck, you know, like this is different than a lot of the metal. I mean, it's different. It's even different from Metallica, you know, obviously it's similar to Kill 'Em All, but it has this own ferocity and punkness to it that was really appealing. So that was a big one. You know, obviously Cro-Mags and Leeway and like those New York hardcore crossover bands were huge. So Cro-Mags, I would say, like when I first heard the second album, Best Wishes, was a really big moment, because
Frank Watkins over here on this poster is wearing a Cro-Mags t-shirt. I always remember I first heard the name from watching the pictures from Obituary. So
yeah. Well, they were always, they knew what was up. Sepultura, of course, Sepultura, you know, hard to not mention them. They were so big for us because they were just like us in the sense, like, you know, they love Discharge and Bathory and Celtic Frost and stuff, but they made it in their own way. And then there's this like Brazilian angle to it, but they were always, you know, huge for us. Sepultura's Arise, Beat the Remains were big, obviously. But Best Wishes, that was definitely a moment where I was like, I want to do that for sure, you know. Just it was so aggressive and thrashy in a different way than any of those bands I mentioned. And it still, you know, coming from listening to the first record, you're just like, oh, this is how you can go from hardcore to metal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So those were big, and then yeah, Iron Age, that band I mentioned, was really big for us, and I mean, there's so many. I'm probably forgetting someone really important, but yeah.
But
I mean, all those
these are the
bands,
first like to come up to your mind, and
yeah, I mean, there's so many. Obviously, big Slayer fans. You know, always love Slayer. You know, you can't say enough about them. Metallica, obviously. You know, Discharge, EBH, just stuff like that. And then yeah, like the stuff late, you know, the Death Thrash stuff, like Devastation, Demolition Hammer, and you know, bands like that. That were
Demolition
like,
Hammer.
yeah, just like
Cool,
you know, the
man.
heaviest thrash bands. You know, they're like those are some of the heaviest thrash bands.
Yeah,
where it's
just
like
just watch
almost,
them. Just watch them live
almost,
recently with Dark Angel in Athens. Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, they were absolutely
like they're
amazing.
almost, it's like almost death metal, but it's not. You know,
Yeah.
so that's like as heavy as thrash can possibly get. Obviously, Slayer is like the pinnacle of that, but you can, if you just push a little harder and get a little more extreme, you know, that's like that's the tip of it. I would
Yeah.
say is before it turns into death metal. It's like Demolition Hammer and Devastation and all the death thrash stuff. Obviously, Sepultura,
Mhm.
you know, stuff like that. Like that.
The
That's
the
inspiring
old
for us.
era, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring for us because we want to be heavy. You know, we're still a thrash band, I guess. So it's like you try to see what the limits of that are before you start turning into a death metal band or whatever.
Okay, let me guess. Beneath the Remains era.
What do you say?
Beneath the Remains era, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I love that record. I think we love all the records. I mean, I love Chaos AD. I mean, that was we played with Cavalera recently, and they did the whole album, and it was
Cool.
fucking awesome. That's such a heavy record, and it kind of combines all the groovy elements of the '90s that we like too, and so creative. But yeah, Beneath and Arise, it's just kind of like the pinnacle of Sepultura. I'd say Arise from a songwriting standpoint is probably my favorite. I mean, Beneath the Remains is so much aggression and power, and you know, it's amazing. But Arise to me is where they started to kind of bring in all the influences. You know, all the, you know, you started to hear Brazil more. You heard like the musicality, the songwriting all kind of came together on that record. I felt like that was to me, that's their best record altogether. But they have a lot of great albums. So, but that one's always been super important to us because it has all the elements. You know, it feels like they found what they were looking for on that record. You know.
Okay, and I've got a question for you. Favorite song from Beneath the Remains and from Arise?
God, these are tough.
I know.
Our favorite song from Beneath the Remains.
Or pick two if you want.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I'm just gonna grab it. I got it right here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah, I would say favorite song on Beneath is, it's hard not to say Inner Self, but I'd say this first song, Beneath the Remains.
Beneath the
one just
Remains.
comes right out of the gate. Yeah, that's my favorite. And then Arise. That's really tough because there's so many good songs. I mean,
Yeah, man.
I'd say Dead Embryonic Cells is just insane.
amazing.
Desperate
Yeah, it's
Cries,
insane.
fucking awesome, and Arise, obviously, and then all these other ones are, yeah, Dead Embryonic, that's like all the best things that they did on the record and in general, just in one song, you know, it's just timeless. It's awesome. So yeah, those are my fave.
I would say Stronger Than Hate and Slaves of Pain for me, but it's again a tough decision. because-
You can't make a wrong answer, you know?
Yeah, Inner Self is amazing. Everything is fucking amazing, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay, and also I wanted to ask you favorite guitarist that actually also influenced you.
That one's really tough too because there's like so many amazing guitar players. I mean, two of my favorite guitar player, well, my top three would probably be, and they're not, it's weird because I don't want to leave out the metal guys. I mean, just growing up, it was like Pete Townsend from The Who, Johnny Ramone, and let me think, who else? Johnny Ramone. Oh, Malcolm Young. You know,
All right.
Angus too. But Malcolm to me is just like his vibe, his look, his rhythm guitar playing. I I'm always trying to be as good as I can at rhythms, and he's the best. So those are like my top rock guys, and then obviously in metal you got Hetfield, Mustaine, and all these. There's so many, obviously Hanneman and King, and there's so many good guys. I don't know, like every great band has awesome guitar players in it. So I don't,
Chuck Schuldiner and
of course, yeah.
and
He's
shit, my brain just stopped.
Dimebag Darrell.
Dimebag Darrell, and yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can't
Jeff Waters?
deny that. Yeah, you can't deny that Dimebag's got to be the just the total package. Like Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen's in there obviously too. He's top of the top. But I mean, Dimebag just like in terms of the total package of like writing and riffs and leads, it's just like from every angle he's insane. So you can make a very strong case he's the best ever.
Gary Holt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Gary's like one huge influence. He's incredible. I mean, he's as a writer and just everything. He's on another level. We can go all day.
And I've got a question from Alexandros Anesiadis. He says, Blake, thank you for the excellent interview you offered me for Crossover the Edge Part 2. One question, Leeway or Chromax, and why?
That's fucking hard. That's a tough one. I have to say Chromags, not because Leeway doesn't rule, but they're just like, they're one of the most instrumental New York hardcore bands. I mean, it's like, what would exist without them? Nothing. It's like Age of Quarrel is just like, if you want to hear a perfect hardcore record, perfect crossover record, it's like, it doesn't get any better than that. But yeah, I mean, they both are so good, but I'd have to go Chromags just based on how instrumental they were to the whole thing, and just how classic it is. But Leeway's, they're just as classic in a different way. But that's tough. I don't like to choose. I'm just gonna listen to both of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. One of the last questions I've got for you is, shit. I'm sorry, I don't remember if I asked it already. If you shared with us a moment, the first time you went to a gig and you were, it was mind blowing for you and that you will never forget.
Yeah, there's been a lot of those. One that really stuck with me that was more recent was I think we played in 2018 maybe. We played with Triptychon doing Celtic Frost.
Triptychon, all right.
Yeah, and they were doing all the Celtic Frost stuff, and we saw it. We played Decibel Fest in LA with them, and I mean, we'd always been big fans of Celtic Frost, of course, but to hear those songs played in the modern, Triptychon, playing them super heavy and slower, and just, it was like the heaviest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, this is, I knew the songs were heavy, but when you hear those old Celtic Frost songs, because the recordings are pretty bare bones, and that's what we love about it. It's raw, but when you hear the songs, on stage in like a full power, you hear all the bands they influenced in that, like I could hear Sepultura and Obituary and everything when I heard that, and it just, hammered home how fucking, important that band and those songs were to like the evolution of heavy music. And it was just like, we were just sitting there with like our jaws on the floor. We couldn't believe how heavy it was. So that was a big one for me.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Blake. Thank you for the time, the clarity, and everything you've shared with us tonight. It's amazing having you with us here on Altars of Metal. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best with Power Trip and Fugitive. I only discovered you guys recently, but holy shit, it's some good stuff over there. And really looking forward to hopefully seeing you also live at some point. Maybe we share a beer or something. So thank you so much, sir, for this amazing interview. Thank you guys in the comments. And yeah, Blake, stay online. Guys, thank you so much for following and for watching this show. And see you on Saturday with Rick Ross from Massacre and Death in the past and many other bands. Hopefully we will go on with the show. And as you know the stories. But yeah, we will be there Saturday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Greek time. Blake Ibanez, to say it right this time. Thank you so much. And yeah, everybody, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are. And yeah, see you soon. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
All right, I gotta run.
Hold on, just let me, okay, very quickly. Promote